Welcome to The Quizmakers, a podcast from riddle.com. Join our weekly chat about all things quizzes, marketing, and everything in between. We'll speak with entrepreneurs and marketers to get their quiz secrets, plus share our story, the highs and the lows of scaling a successful startup since we launched way back in 2014.
Hello, and welcome to the Quizmaker podcast. Our guest today is David Berkowitz. David was the former CMO of MRI, a huge marketing agency, and has now moved to running his own company, Serial Marketers. Hello, David. Thanks for joining us in the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Boris. Great to be here.
David, the first question that I've actually always wanted to ask you and never got around to it somehow, how did you decide to move from being a big corporate CMO, well-respected job at a huge company, to being self-employed? That's a huge step, right?
Yeah, it's a big step, and some of it wasn't entirely the plan, and some of it was going through with, within Publicis. It was a wonderful experience over with the team at MRY, and the team there kept shifting, the organization kept shifting considerably within Publicis, and so ultimately they needed to step back from what they were marketing and kind of retrench there. And then as I was taking some time off there were just a lot of the companies I was initially talking to were on the tech and the product side. And so I was starting to do some consulting there. And then in that 4-year span, I've gone in and out of some of these in-house roles, but all of them have been a lot scrappier, and it's been fun being in this building mode, and really across the board, I've just been attracted to these entrepreneurial roles. So that part has stayed fairly consistent, and a lot of it is, even at MRY, they didn't have a CMO before I joined, right? Like it was still room to just create things and build, and so it's really appealing to attract going over to that startup front and having those as most of my clients day to day.
So, but instead of going the usual route, which is you got to know a lot of people in your previous roles and you set up consulting gigs, you went a slightly different route as well. You started with a small Slack channel, I guess, to keep in touch with people, which has now grown into a huge and thriving community of well over 1,000 members. Tell me about how that idea started to build that community and how you managed to grow it that fast, that big.
Well, the idea started pretty much the day I left MRY, and it's all very connected because I was going to be speaking at an event, and a bit after that transition, and I wanted a company name associated with it, and there's a bigger story behind the company name itself, Serial Marketer. But once I decided on that, from that day, there was this idea, well, wait, a lot of people identify as serial marketers. No one uses that term, even Googling it, right? Like barely any search results associated with it. And so there's something to it. And then I got to this point where I wrapped up this engagement with Story Hunter, this video production marketplace, and it was in July of 2018. And I started the community with a LinkedIn post and said, because I thought Slack was the right place to try this then, and for Slack for business professionals at the time, it was still very unusual for those outside of the startup community to have a Slack account. But it seemed like it was in that right place, and something that you could customize a lot more than the standards of Google and Facebook and then LinkedIn groups. And so I just started a post, connected it to a Google form, and said, got some idea for this community, just ways to share things like jobs, events, and news updates, and who wants to give this a shot, right? Like I didn't know exactly what it would be. And and right away I got 100 people filling out that form. And so like the initial early adopter, and I'd estimate about half of them actually went and created an account. And so it's always some drop off in that funnel there. And then, and so then it was just a matter of, it's funny, it's like now it's nearly 1,500 members, and it feels like it happened both very slowly and very quickly, because it's not one of those things where it's like, put this thing on Product Hunt, tell everyone you know. I've seen some communities that are like very aggressive of having you get the community name on everyone's LinkedIn profiles and just have that viral effect. And this has been overwhelmingly, like, it got to that point, I don't know, 6 months in, where the people joining were much more likely to be from my second degree than my first degree. And so, and now based on that, like some of it's come from my third degree. And so that's, so that to me was a really exciting pivot when I saw that people I didn't know were giving this a shot.
Now, I must say, we tried to copy the serial marketer Slack community at Riddle and tried to build a Riddle quizmaker community on Slack. It completely failed. And I think we failed for one reason. We couldn't figure out why people should join. So, and I think when you mentioned there's a lot of communities that pop up on Product Hunt and they get lots of members, people register, but they never log in, they never contribute. And I think I've been a member of at least 10 or 20 of these. Serial marketer, I check every day. But from your point of view, what do you think did you do different than all these communities that made your community really work? It actually really, really works.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's gratifying to hear because like you said, my initial goal, like once it actually, was sustaining itself after the first few months, then my initial goal for the community was very simple: don't die, right? And if it did die, by the way, that was okay. It was a good experiment. And then there were some of these little milestones along the way, like when I realized I could take a week off on vacation and the community would still be there when I got back. And actually one of the reasons I hesitated to launch a community is because, look, I'm in marketing. I know a lot of people where communities and other related endeavors, they're vanity projects. And I did not want this to be the David Berkowitz community. And I want it to be something where say I got involved with something else that was just going to take up all my, could I basically hand this over to some other folks and say, can you just run with this? And now it's at the point where I even know who those people are in the community who I could do that to if I needed to, and have some confidence that a year from now it would actually maybe thrive even more, right? But a lot of it was a lot of it benefited from that organic build of finding those right members. And I gotta say, some of it is what was the most unpredictable thing that where you've got the luck and skill parts of any degree of success. And so for me, the luck part came overwhelmingly in the people who I call the catalysts of the community. And there are people who, some I knew fairly well, Valeria Maltoni. She's a wonderful writer. I've been on the speaking circuit with her. I've known her a very long time. Never my closest friend in the industry. She's based out in Philly, so not the person I'd have a beer with day to day, but she was someone I knew fairly well, and wasn't as surprising that she'd be as active and just enthusiastic as she was. There are people like Weston Woodward and Chris Gorges, and people are early on like Sheer Abel. Some actually Peggy Ann Sauls, who I met in Germany, who I knew before but sat down with it at DMEXCO, and actually after I met with Peggy in the DMEXCO press room, then I went back to my hotel room and I created an actual roadmap and a media kit, and put together all this stuff because Peggy is so organized, so enthusiastic, and like ideas per minute, like she's just off the charts. But a lot of it has just been gradually just benefiting from people like that, learning from them, and look, like trying to find that right balance of being involved day to day, promoting it, but across people who I'm connected to, who I've known a long time, and who don't know that this community exists. And whenever I hear that, it means I have not been promoting it too much. You know, so again, it's a lot of that balance, and it's tough because I also never know to the extent that I should be like, you know, the main user of the community, you know, and figuring out that balance between being the person running it and being a member. It's tricky.
So in the end, it's not so much the content, it's the initial people, the people you get in that make all the difference. Is that
yeah? And look, like there are things I could have done better. For instance, like there in terms of, say, having a very concrete purpose. I've done more to flesh out, and like, you know, I have some kind of FAQ pages that are more hidden, and clearly I haven't been putting this front and center in terms of like who should be a member and who shouldn't, you know, what the purpose and mission all this is about. And a lot of it is like, you know, get good people together who've either like been in marketing a while or just really excited about it. Have a few of these main use cases. Like I'm all for people. A lot of the times that people refer a friend, it's when someone's on the job market, and not surprisingly, that has fueled a lot of the member growth over the past 6 months. But then a lot of those people get those jobs and pay it forward, and just keep staying an active member and resource in the community, and so it builds from there, right? So, but I think that there's there's so much that I could have been more aggressive with. I think, and just having a lot of this, like you know, determine the product market fit, all these great ideas from the startup world that I didn't do very well, because I'm like, yeah, I still kind of want to see what happens, right? You know, and I do, you know, and I do have a form on the front door where people can request access, and I let in at any given time like 90 to 95%. And when I don't, it's really because I have no idea why this person would want to join, or there are a few of those red flags on their LinkedIn profile that I'm like, this is probably some kind of spammer who's just going to take and not give to the community. And even then, I haven't had a single person who I didn't get in and then like came to me and said like, come on, I should be here. You know, the only messages like that, and I've got one in my inbox right now, is from someone where like the invite link didn't work, and it's like, come on, let me in already, and they should be there, right?
And you kept the community entirely, I don't entirely free of spammers. I don't think I saw one piece of spam. That's good. Now, one last question on the community that a lot of people probably wonder about. You're not, I mean, initially you just started this as a project. You wanted to see where it goes, but it's a lot of work, right? So you should get paid for it. And do you have any regrets of not charging your members from the get-go? I know you recently started with a paid add-on to the community. Do you now, thinking back, say it would have been better to get 500 paying members initially instead of 1,500 free? Or what's your thought in retrospect on paying?
No, well, some of it is the, you know, what's your purpose? Is it supposed to be a revenue stream? Is it, you know, is there value in the community as far as a marketing channel for what you're doing? Look, like when I started this is just a way to bring some people together. And for a long time, it was actually like it was more top of mind, but like the day-to-day work on the community was really minimal. Like I haven't had spammers and trolls in there. I haven't had to deal with like a lot of the worst aspects of it. I didn't create a whole content calendar for myself. I wasn't very aggressive, maybe to a fault, in social media and promoting what's going on in the community. So and so look, there are 1,500 people who registered for this community who are perhaps a little more likely to pick up the phone if I call them because this community exists. Like that's incredible value. And really with charging for it, it was like it got to the point where with the roadmap that I was talking about, there's so much I wanted to do that I didn't feel like I should be the only one investing in this. And I got to the point where I thought that there were things coming up that I want to pay for, right? And so to me, once I could figure out that disproportionate value, ready to roll with it. Now, as far as what I'd recommend others do, it's very different, right? It's because everything I've read, everything I've seen says going a freemium approach is the toughest way to go about it, right? Like either go all in and find sponsors, or just foot the bill and make this a free community, or charge from day one, make it very clear this is what the price is going to be, and then you won't have anyone join you who's not planning on paying. And many of them, even if they stop using it, they're going to pay for the rest of their lives and just kind of forget about it, or something like that. So I think those are the smarter ways to go about this. But launching this as a project and seeing what happened, it's very fitting for me. It's fitting for my brand also, to a fault, I think, to leave money on the table and to think about just value first and not try to cash in on something, and almost waiting as long as I possibly could to go and charge. So it's a tougher way to go about it, but I still think for this community that has a little bit of this iconoclastic feel to it, that isn't run in this just very heavy-handed top-down, shout this thing from the mountaintops, like this community is the next big thing ever. It's really the most low-key bunch of marketers I think you could find anywhere. And to that end, I wound up doing the one advice I would give someone else is that at some point you've got to learn as much as you can, throw it all out, throw out everything you might have learned during this episode here, and then just do what works for you. And that might not mean it works, but then you can at least give it your best shot.
Awesome advice. Thank you, David. And to everyone listening, to wrap this up, I want to pick up 2 points. The freemium model, I agree. We tried that at Riddle 6 years ago or 7 years ago when we started. We went to freemium. It just doesn't work. That would be my advice to other startup founders out there. People who join something and are not paying, to get them to pay is the hardest thing in the world. Either work all free, find other ways to monetize, or go to all paid would be my advice. And as far as the community and being on the show, thank you so much, David, for your time. I've become a paying member of Serial Marketers for one single reason: to thank you for the work you've done, because I've gotten a lot of value out of Serial Marketer. Every question I put in there about marketing, I get answers for. And if I help other people, they're eternally grateful and thankful. I've met so many great people. So any of our listeners, if you're a serial marketer, I'll put the link in the show notes. Join the community. If you give David a good enough reason why you should be there, he will let you in. All right. Well, thank you, David, for being on the show. It was wonderful to have you here.
Thanks so much. And just really appreciate all the work you're doing. And thanks for being part of the community.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of The Quizmakers. And don't forget, check out riddle.com, the quizmaker used by the BBC, Shopify, and thousands of other companies worldwide. Our quizzes are fully accessible and GDPR compliant, so try our free full-featured trial for 14 days with no pesky credit card required. All right, until next time, happy riddling.